You're listening to AI Signals Daily Dose. 1 hour. That's all it took to build what became the fastest growing open source repository in GitHub history. Not 100 hours. Not 1 week. 1 single hour on a Friday night in November. And by the end of this episode, you'll understand how that 1 hour project just handed OpenAI one of their most strategically important hires in years, and why Anthropic, of all companies, may have accidentally made it happen. This is your daily dose for February 18th, 2026. Today, we're going deep on the story behind OpenClaw and the acqui-hire that just reshuffled the AI agent landscape. We'll cover the origin story, the competitive dynamics that made every major tech company reach for the same phone number, and what it all signals about where the real battleground in AI is heading next. Let's get into it. Okay, who is Peter Steinberger, and what exactly is OpenClaw? Because the backstory matters here, and it's actually a great one. Steinberger is an Austrian software engineer in his 40s. For 10 years, he built PSPDF Kit, a software toolkit for handling PDF documents. Not glamorous, genuinely useful. It ended up powering document workflows on over 1 billion devices, with clients that included Apple, Dropbox, SAP, and Volkswagen. In 2021, Insight Partners invested 100 million euros. Steinberger sold his shares. By every definition, that was a successful decade. And then he got bored. Fast forward to November 2025. On a Friday night, Steinberger sat down and wired together a large language model with a messaging app. The goal was deceptively simple. He wanted an AI that could actually do things, not just answer questions, actually execute tasks on his behalf, run shell commands, browse the web, read messages, and respond. Think of it like the difference between asking someone for advice and having an assistant who just handles it. That first version took him 1 hour to build. He connected the WhatsApp interface with Claude Code. The AI was slow to respond, but it worked. He published it under the name Claude Bot, named directly after Anthropic's model Claude. He was a fan. What happened next surprised everyone, probably including Steinberger. The project went viral. 20,000 GitHub stars in 24 hours. 2 million visitors in a single week. By mid-February of 2026, it had accumulated nearly 180,000 stars and was pulling in 720,000 weekly downloads. 1.5 million AI agents created by real users around the world. It became the fastest growing GitHub repository in history by star count, generating more Google searches at its peak than Claude Code or Codex combined. Users connect through messaging apps like WhatsApp, Telegram, Signal, and Discord. The agents run locally on your machine. They can plug into Claude, DeepSeek, or one of OpenAI's GPT models. The idea is persistent, adaptive automation that works through the chat interface you already use every day. And here's where the story takes its first sharp turn. On January 27th, 2026, Anthropic sent Steinberger a polite trademark notice. The name Claude was too close to Claude. Steinberger agreed to rename immediately. During the 10 seconds between releasing the old handle and claiming the new one, scammers grabbed it and launched a fake cryptocurrency token on Solana. The project went through 2 name changes in 3 days. First to Moltbot, then to OpenClaw, keeping what Steinberger called the lobster theme. 18 days later, he announced he was joining OpenAI. Now here's where it gets really interesting, and this is the part that most of the coverage has glossed over. OpenAI didn't recruit Peter Steinberger because OpenClaw is a technological marvel. Some AI researchers have publicly questioned how technically groundbreaking it actually is. The code base has faced real security scrutiny. Cisco's AI security research team tested a third-party OpenClaw skill and found it performed data exfiltration and prompt injection without user awareness. There is a known vulnerability where the control UI automatically trusts a gateway URL query parameter and establishes a WebSocket connection, including the user's authentication token, without verifying the origin. That's a serious issue. So why did OpenAI, Meta, and Microsoft all want this person? Why did Satya Nadella personally call one Austrian engineer? Because OpenClaw proved something that no amount of lab research can prove on its own.
It proved that autonomous personal AI agents are not a research concept anymore. They are a product category. 1.5 million agents running in the real world, built and configured by regular users, not developers with advanced API knowledge. That is product market fit. That is the kind of signal that makes every AI company in the world sit up straight. Steinberger had one non-negotiable condition. OpenClaw stays open source. Meta couldn't agree to that. Microsoft couldn't agree to that. OpenAI could. Sam Altman confirmed it publicly on February 15th. OpenClaw will live in a foundation supported by OpenAI. Altman described Steinberger as, and I'm quoting here, a genius with a lot of amazing ideas about the future of very smart agents interacting with each other to do very useful things for people. Steinberger's own stated reasoning was direct. He said, "What I want is to change the world, not build a large company. And teaming up with OpenAI is the fastest way to bring this to everyone." Now, about Anthropic, because this part stings a little. Steinberger didn't start as OpenAI's person. He was an Anthropic superfan. He named his project after their model. He defaulted to Claude for most users. OpenClaw was one of the biggest drivers of paying API traffic to Anthropic at the time of its peak growth, because the majority of its users were running it on Claude. And then Anthropic sent the trademark notice. To be clear, Anthropic was legally correct to do it. The name was confusingly similar. Legally correct and strategically optimal, though, are sometimes different things. The notice triggered a rebranding crisis, a crypto scam, and a wave of negative press coverage. And within 18 days, the person who had been routing organic customers to Anthropic at massive scale announced a role at their biggest competitor. Against that backdrop, consider this. OpenAI's enterprise market share dropped from 50% in 2023 to 27% by the end of 2025. Anthropic climbed to 40% of the enterprise market in the same period. Landing the creator of the most viral agent framework in the world is not just a talent hire. It is a very deliberate signal. So let's talk about what actually happens next, because the stakes extend well beyond one hiring announcement. OpenAI wins clearly in the short term. They get Steinberger's talent, his community credibility, and the symbolic weight of being the home of open source agent development's most visible creator. Altman said Steinberger will work on the next generation of personal agents, which lines up directly with OpenAI's public push toward agentic consumer products. This hire fits a specific roadmap. The open source community may also win, which is the less obvious part. The deal was conditional on keeping OpenClaw free and open. That's a meaningful precedent. It suggests that at least one major lab is willing to support open source projects rather than absorbing them entirely, because the community trust is actually part of what they're acquiring. How that promise holds up when it runs into product roadmap pressure will be worth watching closely. Anthropic loses a story here, not a fatal one. Their model still powers most OpenClaw users day to day, but the optics are rough, and in a landscape where developer community loyalty is a genuine competitive asset, rough optics are not free. Here's the bigger picture, though, the one that I think matters most. The AI agent race just became real. Not theoretical, not a demo, real. OpenClaw showed that people want agents badly enough to download, configure, and actually run them on their own machines. 1.5 million agents is not a beta. It's a market. And every major AI company just watched OpenAI secure the person most associated with proving that market exists. Watch for OpenAI to double down on consumer-facing agent products in the next 6 months. Watch for Anthropic to accelerate its own agent surfaces, probably with tighter native integration. And watch for more open-source developers to start getting very serious calls from very serious companies. Steinberger went from 1 hour of glue code on a Friday night to being the centerpiece of a major strategic move in 90 days. That timeline is remarkable, even by AI industry standards. And it tells you something important about where we are right now. The window between shipping something compelling and getting recruited by the biggest players is shorter than it has ever been. So here's what to remember from today. OpenAI's hire of Peter Steinberger is not really about OpenClaw. It's about owning the narrative around personal AI agents before that category defines the next chapter of consumer AI. One weekend project, one trademark dispute, and one open source promise later, the agent wars have a new leading voice. Keep an eye on how OpenClaw's foundation actually operates under OpenAI's umbrella, and watch for any response from Anthropic on the agent front, because they have strong reasons to move fast. If today's episode gave you a new angle on how open source and big tech actually interact, share it with someone building in this space. I'll be back tomorrow with more. Until then, stay curious.